often have left over from a collection is the printed chipboard. Now you may have a few pieces left, you may have a lot of pieces left. Some chipboard is very themed, other chipboard is more generic, like these flowers. But it's still specific to a collection. It still has the colors and the style for a particular collection. In this case, this is Spice Market from Basic Gray. The papers are long gone, and all I really have left are all these chipboard elements. When I found this in my stash, going through a drawer where I keep stickers and this printed chipboard, one of the things I remembered was that I had some photos that I thought had some of these similar colors, and these photos that were taken on a trip for my birthday back in April. And we're wearing a lot of the same colors that are in there, and it has this kind of soft look at the beach that I think these elements have as well. So I have some photos and I have some chipboard, and I want to pull things out of my stash together to make this work. Now, one of the first places to look would be Basic Gray, because manufacturers will tend to utilize a lot of the same colors. Some companies like October Afternoon do this a lot. The papers will really match from collection to collection. And Basic Gray does some of that. There will also be a lot of times some similarity in style as well. So I'm going to look through some Basic Gray collections. Another way to approach this is to pick out some of the specific chipboard elements that I know I want to use on my pages. Now, these pages, I want to talk a little bit about not so much my birthday, but the birthday year, and maybe some dreams and ideas and things. So this is one of those kind of pages, rather than being a specific moment in time, but using this photograph to encompass either a lot of things that have happened or things that I want to happen. And then I have a photo of my husband and myself. And this picture I took of him. We were in the restaurant, and before I had the server take our photo together, I just took a photo to see how it would come out. And I really love the composition of this picture. It's one of those that follows that rules of thirds really well without my even having to try to get that to come out. So I've got the potential here for even 3 layouts if I wanted to use them. But let's say I wanted to start with this one with just me, and what things in here are going to be relevant to that. And I really like this one that says Never Stop Dreaming, and that has the teals, and it does have a little bit of the red, even though I don't have the red color. It's a slightly formal kind of style to it, but I don't necessarily have to do a real formal style. But there are several things in here that are a little bit more formal, and there's some cutesy things like the little smiley or winking face there too that are not so formal. So first thing I'm going to do is go pull some Basic Gray product, and then we're going to go to the paper drawers and things by color. And then we're going to look for some other embellishments that sort of go with the theme and kind of pull some things together, but using this leftover chipboard as our starting point. Okay, I've pulled out 3 Basic Gray collections that I think have some colors that match this. At least this first one does here. This is J'adore, and I was struck by this paper here that is very close in color with these little hearts. I think that would go really well with some of the photos. There's also some stickers here with a few additional things that might work out. Now that's not J'adore. I have some other things in this drawer besides J'adore that was originally, that kind of went with it. This I think is J'adore. This is a little dark to me. Now it might go with the photo with my husband. Yeah, it's not bad at all, so we'll pull that out. I don't think the stripe is it. I think the stripe is too bright for what I'm going for, and then the rest of that. So see, there was very little Basic Gray there, but I may be able to combine these together and utilize the last bits of both of these collections. Now let's look at Deer Heart and Hillside and see if there's anything in here in terms of papers that match color-wise with this chipboard and these photos. Now this is a stripe that's much softer, and I like it as an option.
Continuing through the 12 by 12 paper, a lot of hillside is the green is wrong. It's very bright green. But the Deer Heart collection has some options in it. There's a sort of blue-green print there that's good, and then I went through the 6 by 6s and found a little bit, mostly I just kept the Deer Heart 6 by 6 handy in case I want some of those smaller papers. And I've pulled out the green drawer from my, or the blue drawer I guess, from my by color drawers, and I have this one paper here that I have had forever that has that postage stamp edge on it. I think it was I think it's My Mind's Eye. But anyway, the colors are a really good match. For this particular layout, it's really almost too masculine, but it may work for some of the others. And then those pieces there, it's a little too red, so I'm looking for something more in a rosy tone that might work with these. And I do have that pink. That's a possibility, but I put it back, and for looking for a I realized I didn't have anything for a background. My favorite sand color is Sahara Sand from Stampin' Up, and in my drawer of that cardstock I had this designer paper that came with some celebration stuff one time, and the reason it really hadn't been used is because it's the sand color but it has flowers on it. So it's not really a beachy kind of thing, but in this case, since I'm talking more about birthday and life event kind of thing and not so much about beach, then it's a good fit for that. Choosing some chipboard that will work for this first layout. And all of these are the pretty teal green and a little bit of rose. The stickers, the heart might be better for the one with the picture of the two of us together, and the suitcase, we are traveling, but that's not really the focus, what's going on here. I did decide to use some 6 by 6 pieces for matting the photo, just sort of layering behind the photo, I should say. Just kind of playing around with these, getting an idea of where I want things to go. I have a few other embellishments over there to the left from the J'adore collection. We'll get to those a little bit later. And then that green, I'm looking at doing a strip across from that.
Something that works well with chipboard is ribbon, because I've got some thickness here, so I want to put some other embellishments with it to sort of build up to that thickness. And then maybe even go beyond it if I wanted to do flare or something like that. But if I do washi tape or just strips of paper, then I just sort of have these kind of laying on top, and I feel like they need a little bit more texture and a little bit more thickness to the embellishment. And a thing that works really well with them is ribbon. Now, because I'm a card maker as well, I have a lot of ribbon. And I used to collect even more. I don't do as many cards as I once did. I don't do the multiples of cards that I once did, where I would make, 3 or 4 of the same thing. So I have, still a fairly good stash of ribbon that I'm just not running through. Now, some things I use on my scrapbook pages quite a bit, and other things have been kind of lounging in here and have not been used. So let's pull out some stuff like this ribbon. I have used this. There wasn't a ton of it, but I've used it several times. But you tend to use it in very small quantities. And this matches beautifully. It's a little bit, I don't know, a little bit heavy, I think, for this kind of springy page, but we'll see. Now, something like this is not full. It's a beautiful texture, and I could use it as it is, but there are some ways to create that fullness. And I think I have a ribbon in here. Yeah, here it is. This one that's already pleated. It's a little bit bluer, though. It's not bad. It's a pretty good match, but I think I like this one better. So I think I'm going to leave this pleated one out. And we're going to do some things with this that will create a little bit of fullness with this ribbon. And those tricks can come in handy when you have plainer ribbons like this just satin ribbon. Sometimes just putting that down on a layout doesn't do a whole lot for you. It can still look attractive, but I find myself not doing that very much. I want to either do a little something extra with the ribbon, or I want to use just another flat trim like washi tape. Because one of the reasons is this is hard to glue without the glue showing. So we're going to look at some ways for dealing with that. Now, I don't really have, that's not really the right color in here anyway. Let's see what.
As I go through these rosy colors, I'm looking for things again that have a little more texture to them. It's just most of them are too pink, but I do find a trim in the red container that's kind of a little bit softer pinkish color, so that's going to work. I just find the ribbons are a little bit harder to use, we tend to forget about them, but they work really well with chipboard because they're a little bit thicker. And to keep this a little more modern and not just old stuff, I'm also going to add some washi tape. Although washi's been around a long time, it is still, I think, we think of it as a little newer supply than ribbon. And I'm going to use a little bit of gold washi tape. And that wide one, I remember it's really sticky, so wherever I put it, I've got to be sure of it. Now to kind of bunch my trim up, I'm just taking some thread. This happens to be sort of a little bit thicker cord, but it could be any thickness of thread that you want, and just doing a wide running stitch, and then I'm going to pull that to gather the ribbon together. You could also sew on the machine, just sort of pushing the ribbon underneath the presser foot carefully and stitching. But my sewing machine is in the basement and I'm on the second floor, so this is a lot faster and will give me some texture out of this really soft ribbon. And I'll just tie a knot, or I'll just put a couple of stitches on one side that'll kind of hold it, and do the same thing on the other end. And then I can glue that down later on with glue dots. Now this punch is from Stamping Up. This is also an older item from my stash. It's called the slip punch, and it's designed for you to punch it and then slip something through it, like ribbon or paper through the hole. As well as I remember, that was the original purpose for it, but it makes a scalloped edge. So you could use any kind of scallop punch for this design, and what I'm doing is just doing a scalloped edge and then adding a little bit of white gesso to it to kind of create the wave, the foamy waves like you have at the beach. It sort of goes with the photo. So we have a little bit of beach theme in here and a little bit more of just pretty stuff to go with my photo. And I'm doing the whole length of paper, although I will trim this down when I put it on the layout. And I did add some Sahara sand ink to the edges of some of the papers. And the green, I'm thinking about adding a little more of the green. The original, I had to cut, the punch, I had to trim it down to use that. But I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the green paper, and then where that seam is, I can go across that with other paper, trim, or washi tape. And that's a really good place for that stripe there too. I just sort of frayed the ends of this a little bit, and this particular ribbon is thick enough that I can just put some Tombow glue on it and glue it straight down, and the glue's not going to show through. I also had a sticker there that I thought would match really well, but I just didn't quite have a good place for it, and it was a little bit too bold a color. I have my journaling that's going to go to the left of the photo, and for a title, I'm using some odd chipboard letters here because all I want it to say is happy. That's kind of, the journaling leads up to the word happy. And so I picked all my letters, and normally what I do is take the tops off of my chipboard and then paint them or ink them or whatever. This time I decided to just go over the tops with some gesso, so I had that out anyway. So even that glittery letter just went over the top of it with gesso. And after I did, I got to thinking that A and the Y were not a bad color by themselves, so I pulled a little bit of the gesso back off, and then I'm just going to leave those as kind of a greenish tint that goes with the rest of the page. For color, once the gesso dries, I'm using gelatos, putting a little gelatos on there and adding some water to them, and then once this is dry, then I'll have some pretty colorful, soft colorful letters. To tie them all together, I'm using some blue ink around the edges. And that'll make them stand out a little bit more too on the background paper. Then I'm going to glue that ribbon on with glue dots. And we're getting close to the final touches for this page. I have a little rhinestone heart that I thought was pretty, but it had some foam on the back, so I took the foam off and then I just used a glue dot, I think, to attach it up there to the top of the chipboard.
So we have our trim glued on here, and I added a little bit more trim down here and glued on my letters and added a brad there. So for this page, to work with some old chipboard that I had, not terribly old, but from a collection that I didn't have anything else to go with it. I just had this chipboard to make it work with something and use this up out of my stash. I've added some papers also from the same manufacturer, from Basic Gray, a couple of things from them, and then I went into my stash by color and picked out a few other things that were similar color and style that would go with it. Found some trims that kind of worked with the chipboard. We recycled some old chipboard letters that again goes with this whole idea of using some of the same product, but these were mismatched letters, just covered them with gesso and then added some gelatos and a little bit of ink around the edges to sort of tie everything together. And we've used some washi tape to kind of blend older and newer products together in the same layout. We also did just a touch of mixed media with adding a little bit of gesso to this punched border using a very old punch from Stampin' Up. So a mixture of product that we've had for a long time along with a little bit newer product, and pull that together for a very, what I hope is a very happy page.